You can go ahead and open. There you go. We now call this meeting to order. If you could please rise and pay attention to Councilman Duncan for the invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Am I on? Am I on? All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to take a little different route this evening. Yesterday, our community lost somebody. Her name was Annie Hedquist. She was a deacon at my church, St. David's Episcopal Church, for many years. She was actively involved in several organizations throughout our community. She will be greatly missed. She was one of, without a doubt, not only the nicest person I knew, but the most level-headed. Many times our conversations ended up her reminding me that there was patience you needed and inevitability was a real thing. And so those were good lessons that I often needed, and she was good at guiding me back to that path. But it also, one of the last conversations I had with Annie was about the struggles and problems that clergy have had over the last year in handling COVID and the challenges they've faced, not just in holding church, but in how they tended to people who were dealing with COVID in hospitals and homes and all of the challenges that were in front of them. And as I looked it up, as we've approached almost 600,000 deaths due to the pandemic, several thousand of those are clergy of all denominations, in many cases individuals who contracted it while serving their flock. So I thought this seemed like an appropriate time to just take a moment of silence this evening for all of those clergy who dedicated themselves in their lives. Thank you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We proceed to the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla,
Here.
Council Members Hiller,
Here.
Valdivia Acala, Ortiz, Emerson,
Here.
Padilla,
You can't hear them at all in here.
Nager,
So what do you want me to do?
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Here.
and Lesser. We have 10 present.
Okay, I apologize. I'm gonna have to restart the computer because we lost our audio from the Zoom people.
Okay, so we will, for those of you who are watching at home, we will have a small recess while we restart the computers. That way we can have audio. So if you would allow us 2 or 3 minutes to recess, we will reconvene the meeting as soon as we're able to restore the audio to those individuals back at home. Thank you.
All right, we're ready.
We're ready?
Yep. All right, there we go.
All right, welcome back. Testing, do we have audio from our friends?
From the Zoom, oh, no one's saying anything? Can someone on Zoom say something? I think I fixed it, but.
Something.
Yes, we have something from Nager in District 6.
We can hear you.
Thank God it's something and it's not something big. So, at this point in time, we do continue with the meeting and we proceed to the consent agenda. If the clerk would read.
Item 2A of the consent agenda are the minutes of the regular meeting of April 6, 2021. And there was one dance hall application that was distributed this afternoon, and staff is recommending approval.
We have received prior to consent agenda. I'm sure that everybody has had an opportunity, and as well, we have the request for a dance hall. What is the pleasure of the governing body?
Mayor, move approval. Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Emerson, a second by Councilman Dobler. Any comments or questions on this issue? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Council members Ortiz,
She's not back on yet, or is she?
I don't know.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala.
Yes.
We have 9 yes.
And having voted yes, the motion carries. We now move on to the action items. Action item A, if the clerk would read.
Item 3A is selection of one city council voting representative to serve a 3-year term on the Friends of Topeka Zoo FOTS Board of Directors. This item was deferred 1 week from the meeting of April 6, 2021.
So for those of you who were watching last week, we did have a nomination of Councilman Lesser. Councilman Lesser was not here at that point in time. Therefore, we decided to ensure that not to create a precedent of nominating people like it's happened to me and Jado to be chairs or be board members of something while they're not present. We wanted to ensure that the council member was here to defend himself in case that happened. At this point in time, I would like to open up the floor to see if there is additional nominations or anybody else who would be interested in being considered for this position. Again, the position is a position as a board member with the FOTS group, as we have transitioned our leadership in the zoo at this point in time.
I move nomination cease.
We have a motion to move nominations to cease while still including Councilman Lesser. We have a second for the nominations to cease by Councilwoman Nager. Comments about ceasing the nominations? Seeing no, we would vote to then cease the nominations, and then after we pass that vote, we would start voting for Councilman Lesser as the member. So we would proceed with the vote for the ceasing
Madam
of the
Mayor?
nomination.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the only thing I would ask in respect to this, as previously, you know, because of the different issues that came up, I've been on the fire committee with Councilwoman Valdivia, and then I'm on the JADO Business Task Force as well. I'm excited about this opportunity, and it fits well with my plan to try to work with my governing body members on a Gage Park master plan. But I would ask, and I don't know if it's appropriate at this point in time, if you would then, you had appointed me to the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization. I would ask if I could be replaced on that. I don't have enough, I don't feel that I can do all those, quite honestly. So I would ask, request that as well.
Absolutely, sir. I'll take that into consideration. Just kidding. Happy to do so. Okay, so at this point in time, we vote to end the nominations. If the clerk could please call the vote.
Council members Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
and Ortiz. We have 9 yes.
Okay, 9 voting yes, the nominations have ceased. At this point in time, we do have, we had a nomination for Councilman Lesser from last meeting. That is the only nomination. Do we have a motion to move forward? Or do we have to, we don't have to have a motion for that one. Okay, so congratulations, Councilman Lesser, for us ceasing those nominations. You are appointed by your colleagues to be the board member for the zoo. We will discuss ensuring that we find a replacement for you on the MTPO.
There she is.
Thank you.
She didn't get to vote on the zoo, though.
Oh, well.
All right, Councilwoman Ortiz, just so that you know, Councilman Lesser is now on the zoo board. We now move on to item B, if the clerk would read.
Item B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by section 18.50.050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at 535 Northwest Broad Street from HUD Plan Unit Development with M-1A Limited Multiple Family Dwelling District Use Group to L1 Light Industrial District.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, Bill Finder, Planning and Development Director, will present the details of the requested zoning change. Bill?
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, governing body. As you heard, this is a proposed rezoning to go from a PUD with limited multiple family uses to an I-1 light industrial zoning district. The land has been vacant at least since the early 90s when a mobile home park was vacated sometime before then. The rezoning is actually really influenced by the surrounding properties and what they are zoned and their uses. There's significant I-1 light industrial to the north and south. To the east, you've got C4 intensive commercial. And then you have good buffering to the west before you get to R1 by stand of trees, Old Soldier Creek, and some agricultural fields. So the proposed land use itself is a self-storage facility, which is an indoor self-storage. Good use of the land, fairly low in intensity. It's screened from Topeka Boulevard by the shopping center in front of it. So all in all, staff did not receive any comments during the Neighborhood and Planning Commission process. Planning Commission does recommend approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed with comments and discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Ledbetter. Oh, actually, no, we moved the agenda item, so it's a different agenda item. I would like to open it up for comments to see if there's any questions on this item. And if memory serves me right, this requires ex parte communication. So therefore, I would also encourage the council members to consider any ex parte communication that they have had. It's our opportunity to ensure that we are able to disclose to the public if we have received any information pro or against this item, and that we are able to make our decision without any bias. So I see Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I did receive communication from NIA folks in North Topeka West. Initially, there was some miscommunication, them not receiving notification to give their input on the project. However, I have received no other communication in being against the project. I think that there was a couple of calls I also received from residents outside of the NIA that felt that this was a good project and was thought out by the Planning Commission. And as Bill is saying, it is surrounded by the C4, by the L1, and quite a bit of space before you get into the R1. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Additional information of anybody wanting to disclose? Seeing none, comments or questions for our staff? All right, what is the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala?
Vote to approve.
We have a motion for approve. We have a second by Councilman Emerson. One last opportunity for comment or discussion. Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Council members Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor Daley Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
And Emerson.
Yes.
We have 10 voting yes.
10 having voted yes, the motion carries. We now move on to action C, if the clerk would read.
Item C is an update from the Policy and Finance Committee, recommendations concerning review and adoption of future City of Topeka building codes.
Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll preface this with, if I screw any of this up, please, one of my colleagues, feel free to jump in, or city staff. Policy and Finance, Council Members Nager and Councilmember Emerson and myself made up that committee. As you may or may not recall, a few months back, this was sent to that committee after there was consideration of, while all the hard work was very much appreciated and laid an essential foundation for us to update these codes, it was only being brought to us as the 15 codes. There seemed to be a general consensus or will of the body that if we could get that up to 18 or 21, that would be even better if it was at all possible. So the Policy and Finance Committee met. We met with staff, had a lengthy but very productive conversation about what it would take to get us to 18 or even 21 codes. And staff has come back and said, we can get us to 21 by the end of 21 if you just give us that opportunity to do the work over the next few months. So I believe what we need to do this evening is approve the recommendation that came out of the committee, which was to allow staff to move forward to, by the end of this year, bring us the updated 21 codes. So I think that's correct, but there may be more to it than that. And future codes, correct, and future codes. So we appreciate staff's flexibility on this, and as we said to them during that meeting, the fact that we wanted a little more did not negate the year and a half they spent on 15, because all that work was done is actually probably what allows us now to make this leap to get us up to date. So I don't know if Councilmembers Nager or Emerson have anything like to add or
Councilman
fix.
Emerson, to be followed by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
I was simply signaling that I did not, Mayor, but just as a clarification, this one is just the existing, international existing building code.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Okay, I think I had something similar to Tony's question. So what we're looking at right now is just the 2015. There's not going to be any move to 2018 or to get up to speed to 2021 that we are going to be voting on tonight. But it's in your committee instructions that that's what will happen by the end of the year. So we'll be up to speed at the end of the year or first part of next year. Is that correct?
Yes, the recommendation from the committee was, please bring us an updated 21 code by the end of 21. And since we passed out that recommendation, the rules of the governing body say that we now need to bring that recommendation to the full body for approval. Because you guys could say, no, we love the 15 codes. Let's stick with that. Why do it? So I don't think that's what's going to happen. So yes, we're bringing our recommendation to update us to the 21 codes by the end of 21 to the governing body.
Okay.
It's sort of a
thank you.
procedural hiccup, but it's one we have to do.
City Manager.
And one I want to clarify is we are going to be doing two codes this year, the IEBC and also the IECC, which is the Conservation Code. So, so there are two codes that we're attempting to bring up to 21.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
This is a question or clarification. What I recall from the conversation when this got referred to committee was that there was some sense that perhaps we, in the past, have overdone it in terms of amending these model codes, and that part of the kind of a combination of expediting and using the most current copy, but also minimizing the amendments so that it is comparable to those that our neighbors have, to make us more development friendly, I thought was part of it. I don't know if that needs to be part of the motion, but I thought I would just check and see if that was part of what the committee's intent was as well. Or the staff's.
Yeah, we had that discussion, and staff can delve into a little more if they want. I think at the end of the day, there weren't as many changes as we thought. That's the first thing. There definitely are some changes.
Okay.
The good news is, if you look every year that those codes come out, they provide a summary of what the changes were from the previous ones. So we're to the point where they've already had the conversations with stakeholders. They can look at what those changes were from 18 to 15 and then 21 to 18, and they can have some very quick conversations. Hey, this doesn't negate any of our changes. These are the things that we might need to have a quick discussion about, and then they can move forward that way. So we don't foresee another round of lots of new amendments and changes because, again, they've already done that. So at least that's my understanding, and staff wants to correct me, feel free.
Well, and if I may, there was a sense, and I didn't go through it myself to look at what we had compared to that model, was that perhaps with the best of intentions, in Topeka, we had over-customized a little bit and we needed to kind of back off. But again, you all.
Well, I also think part of the problem was we were going from 92 to 2015, which meant that there were, so the volume of years also made it seem like some of those changes were more drastic than I think. There definitely are a few of those, and staff said they would go back and look at those again. But it didn't feel as overwhelming as once you dig into it that it seemed uninitial.
Great,
First
thank
look.
you.
City Manager?
Mayor, if I could have Director Finder make a couple comments. He's got some things he's mentioned to me, texting on how they're going to go through the process in order to speed it up. So I think that would be good additional information for you to have. Bill?
Sure. One piece of news that we found out about after we met with the committee is, as you directed and kind of challenged it to try and speed up this process, we were able to reach out to ICC to bring in a trainer because since we're going, when you go multiple years, say 15 to 21, you kind of need to customize the training, and that, if it was left up to staff, that would definitely take a little more time. And so this bringing in a trainer to do a one-day session with all the stakeholders really cuts our process down almost in half. So we feel pretty confident that that will get us to the fall of these codes. So that was good news. We got a budget for that in the future. I think we'll be able to do that.
Thank you.
Additional questions from the governing body? Okay, what is the pleasure at this point of the governing body?
I would move to approve our recommendation.
We have a motion from Councilman Duncan to approve the recommendation of the committee. We have a second by Councilwoman Nager. Additional comments or questions prior to the vote? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Councilmembers Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
and Padilla.
Yes.
We have 10 voting yes.
And having voted yes, the motion carries. We now move on to the non-action items of the evening. Non-action item A.
Item 4A is a discussion concerning alarm system installers amending Topeka Municipal Code sections 5.15.020 and 5.15.030.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a small change, but it is something that has been discussed for a little while regarding the opportunity to make some changes within regards to this alarm installer's part. Jamie, our supervisor, records clerk, is come forward, and she will make a presentation on what this change involves. Jamie?
Thank you, members of City Council and Madam Mayor and City Manager. The Topeka Police Department licenses alarm installers. And after determining that an applicant has no convictions for theft or destruction of property under TMC 5.15.030, it requires certification by the National Burglar and Fire Alarm Association. But since that time, the National Burglar and Fire Alarm Association has revamped its organization, and they're now known as the Electronic Security Association. So this ESA is chaired by members from 7 state associations, including the state of Kansas, and we've provided their website address. Accordingly, TPD is requesting an amendment to the ordinance to recognize ESA. Additionally, the Complete Electronic or Electrical Academy, CEA, is a provider for training alarm installers. They have requested that in addition to ESA, the ordinance be amended to include any nationally recognized testing or certification organization so that certification from CEA will be recognized by TPD as well. We've provided their website address. The amendment would be consistent with the City of Wichita, which requires certification from ESA, as well as other testing agencies. Mr. Jason Lindquist of CEA will be present to answer any questions that you have currently.
Questions that we have with regards to this item? Seems pretty procedural. Yes, Councilman Duncan.
Is there a reason we name any entity as opposed to just saying any nationally recognized testing or certification organization? Since they changed their name, and that was one reason we had to make a change. Is there a reason we don't just use that blanket language, and in case they change their name again in 2 years or something? So I didn't know.
We've not found any reasoning behind that.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if that's good or bad. Legal can look at that, but.
Yes.
You don't have to come back if every time they change their name and say, "Oh, we got to change the ordinance again." They change their name. Just a thought.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. With those changes in the organization as well as the testing agencies, are there any changes in the qualifications? Whether it be we used to hear appeals all the time from people who are trying to get various licenses. Are there changes in the qualifications, both criminal or record or otherwise, to get that license?
No, actually, it's just opening the academies who are able to provide equivalent training and certification.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Additional comments or questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right, we now move on to item B, if the clerk would read.
Item 4B is a discussion concerning the reorganization of certain city departments.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As you can tell today, we changed this item from an action item to a discussion item. There was mention by Chief of Staff that there were a couple council members that had requested that we have an opportunity to discuss this and bring up in some issues prior to us taking some action. So hearing that information, I thought it would be appropriate. We've been working on this and had delayed it a period of months, and so another week in order to make sure we've got this right and hear your information and concerns was definitely worthwhile for us to do. These are changes that have been primarily identified. Most of the major changes relate to the decision to eliminate the Neighborhood Relations Department. That was done back when we started dealing with COVID and changes that we made within our structure of government. So we eliminated the director and then moved the various divisions of that department into other departments in order to have management of them. So since then, we have moved the Housing Services Division underneath Planning and Development, and they are handling those issues well. It's been going on for a while, and it seems to be a very good fit. We moved the Property Maintenance Division underneath the Police Department. They have been working in that situation for many months, and it seems to be a good fit as well. We moved Community Engagement Division underneath the City Manager's office with an attempt to try and increase connection between the City Manager's office and members of the community, and then also created the Ombudsman position within community engagement in order to increase that access as well and for problem solving of citizens that deal with particular issues within the community. So those were the primary changes that we made. During the time frame where the Public Works Director position was vacant, I began to work more directly with deputy directors of the Public Works Department and found that there was a need, in my opinion, to move the Internal Services Department as its own department calling it internal operations. Most of the division is made up of facilities, fleet, and then also the technical support group. Those individuals support everyone within the city rather than just the Public Works Department. And so I felt housing them in that location maybe reduce access, and found that comments were made from others within the departmental structure that indeed they felt that since no longer being more controlled by Public Works, that they were getting access to assistance that they needed and had wanted. So I felt that it was better for us to create a separate department in order to be able to continue that support that's provided to all departments. At the moment, Hannah Ulrich is the current division or deputy director of internal services, and she would be appointed as the director of that new department. She would continue to keep parking at this time. She's developed a strong relationship with our downtown businesses and patrons, and we want to make sure that we continue that. So it may seem odd, parking is not an internal operation, but in this particular case, there is a strong relationship with our current director that handles that, and I want to continue to keep that at that point. In the future, we may look at changing that and putting that back under Public Works, but right now we have the right person in place to be able to handle that and these other duties. And so for that reason, I felt it would be good to create this other department. I've had positive discussions with the other department directors regarding the change that I'm proposing here, and so that's why we had that. As far as there are some other provisions in it relating to the CAC and NIAs and their relationship with community engagement staff. That is another part of it. Also, moving the disposal of city property, that responsibility would move under the legal department. That was something that was in neighborhood relations, and so we had to find a home for that. Most of that is a legal procedure, and so the intent is by moving it under the legal department, make it a much easier transition, since a lot of that is really a legal procedure. There are also other various cleanup pieces in the ordinance that are changed. Any place you see a department name that no longer exists or department director position that has been changed, we're making those changes as well to clean that up. So I guess with that, we'll stand for any questions or comments or feedback that you might have towards these changes that are being proposed.
Before the governing body has a chance to engage, I would like to call Mr. Ledbetter so that we could hear from the public as we engage in our discussion.
Good evening, governing body. Joseph Ledbetter. Regarding setting up another department on face, I'd be opposed to that. Usually when you do reorganizations, you're looking to streamline and actually get rid of excess personnel that aren't needed. The first people you look at eliminating in reorganizations are middle managers. Middle managers, although they're useful in some instances, a lot of times they're part of an old style of hierarchy that, in my opinion, isn't flat enough. It doesn't push labor out to the front. Instead, it builds hierarchies and bureaucracies within bureaucracies. So on face, I see no need for that. And what shocked me the most when I saw this on the agenda last week was here we were bringing up something for action to the governing body, the board of directors, and it hadn't even been discussed. We have a problem with that in this government. I have noticed over the last couple of years how many things are brought before this council on short notice, and it's like the cart is being driven, or the cart is driving the horse, and you guys are the ones that need to have the time, you people, you folks need to have the time to analyze these things and ask questions, and that's your purview. You're supposed to vet things like this, not just this, but any number of things I've seen brought before this council, including a water rate increase that was done a year early. I mean, of all the things, and it had to be done within that particular month. I remember that very vividly. So I look at these processes and I go, folks, this is not the way to run a government. You need time to analyze these things. You need time to ask questions. And there's no rush. There's no rush on reorganizations, especially if you can't prove to me that you're actually saving any money by actually losing FTEs and trimming staff. The other thing that I will say, and I'm going to reserve some of this comment for public comment, code enforcement to me is a cabal. It's kind of like reorganizing the chairs on the Titanic. It's like I do not understand why code enforcement cannot be effective. I've been complaining about it. Other people have complained about it. I've even worked on committees with the Greater Topeka Partnership about code enforcement, and it seems like nothing changes. So we're going to move it under the police department now, and I'm going, prove to me that that's going to change anything. When are we going to finally get focused on the people's needs to have their neighborhoods protected, their property rights protected? Many times from outside owners, people that don't live in Topeka, not always. I showed pictures of one where it was a vacant house now that is basically terrorizing an old friend of my family from East Topeka because the guy's died and it's overwhelmed with rats, and she keeps calling the city and nobody will respond to her. And I'll talk about that in public comment. I do have her phone number if the manager wants to call her. But I just question, why are we shifting the chairs on the Titanic with code enforcement? And I'm not hearing anything about what we're going to do to finally bring legal together, the courts together, administrative fines, and the perfect example, never mind, I'll bring it up in public comment. Now, I will be happy to stand for questions if the manager or somebody else wants questioning I said, or I'll take my seat.
I do have a question, Chair.
We were trying to ensure that we did not engage when people did their presentation.
Was that on the rules? Sorry, I don't have those with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
However, you can ask any questions of the governing body, and maybe we can get you clarification by then. So at this point, we do open it up to questions for individuals to the staff, so that we. Oh, Councilwoman Valdivia-Alca.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just going to say that I'm not engaging with the commentary. I'm just saying that there's much that I agree with. I am, in some ways, what's happening with the reorganization, I still confess to being a newbie to some extent, and drilling down into the number of concerns I've had by NIA folks, even if they belong to CAC, conversations that they've had where they do not feel like they know what is really happening with the different departments being moved around, the neighborhood relations being dismantled. What is that going to mean for access to, who they're used to having access to? Are they going to, folks like Monique and LaToya, whoever who really are integral to communication with a lot of these folks, are they going to have the same access? And to me, even though the director, resigned or whatever happened with Sasha, I think that what came after that with just a dismantling of the neighborhood relations was something that sounds like, to my understanding, city manager opted for. I've got to be really honest in that I have not had a lot of conversation about it with the city manager, more because two things. I think Tuesday evenings are the times when I am committed to being more transparent to constituents so they can see what's happening instead of the meetings that we have or the emails or whatever. And the other thing is that I really didn't feel like it was going to do a whole lot of good. I felt that most of this was already in motion, and that's unfortunate. Again, I do need to say that there are definitely folks that are concerned about the dismantling. They're concerned about what's happening or what may happen with SORT, and they're concerned about a multiplicity of things. Some of those things it's my responsibility to assure them on, but I just don't have a lot of faith in this. And I have deep, deep concerns about code and the ongoing issues that we have in our districts where code is needed the most. And I'm not a see, click, fix it person because I don't trust that system either. And I've heard too much of it drops information. They're steered towards, constituents are steered towards that and they have a hard time tracking it. It's not user friendly. So I think that this is just a process that, as we go about voting on it, I definitely won't be supporting it. That doesn't say much other than I'm going to not support it because my constituents don't feel good about it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I can echo some of the thoughts and sentiments of Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, and I appreciate that this was put on for discussion. I don't think it even came out until after the agendas came out last time, and I did not realize that there were new sections in it. So I hadn't had time, and I apologize for that if I should have caught it. So I'm eager to read again on the internal services. What you said makes some sense and helps to flesh it out. Regarding what used to be the Neighborhood Relations Department, I think most of you know, and the city manager has met with some of the folks from the neighborhoods that we've worked on the DREAMS program, and that's not just a funding thing. That has to do with what the relationship is between the city and the neighborhoods and how the neighborhoods and the CAC see their roles. And what I saw in the draft is that I know that the new chair really wanted to work on procedures and wanted to sync up bylaws and the city ordinance. And so even there's more detail than in anything else. It looks like that really was achieved to me. And I need to double check, but it looks like that really was achieved. However, some of the other things about exactly what the role is of the CAC, the NIA, and the NIA description apparently was just done by staff, and it goes all the way back to when all we had was CDBG and homeless money, and it only talks about federal money and getting funded. And what we know is that there needs to be a much broader scope of the vision of what the NIAs are all about than just the federal money. I think it will be easy to work on that a little bit, and I can just get with city manager, at least for starters, on that. I think you've made a choice not to detail any of the sub-directors except, I guess, the housing director. But I think everyone would appreciate a clarity as you've kept all three staff that used to work with the NIAs and moved them over, but clarifying exactly what their jobs are and what the expected relationship is with the neighborhoods. Is it just funding, administration, and it seems like it wouldn't be because now the housing department is in a separate department, so it's a little unclear whether housing is now just grant. Somebody else comes up with what they're going to do. The director there is not on the front lines of these decisions, except it doesn't appear to be anyway, except in the trust fund decision making. So I'd like to understand better the vision of the roles. I think it's close, but we will all rely on those words as well. And so simply looking forward to all three of those pieces. Got a couple of technicals in the changes that are notched into the trust fund. If I could ask the city manager, it used to be that the Department of Neighborhood Relations director was to serve on the trust fund advisory group, but also was to chair it. And that has now changed to being the planning and development department head.
Correct.
Okay, and is there an expectation that that person will chair as well?
Yes.
Okay, right now it says that person's on it, but that person or their designee could be the chair, and so
Yeah,
I
right
wasn't
now
sure where
he-
you were going with it.
No, that, right now, he is the chair and
Okay.
and is driving that process forward.
Super. Well, there's some technicals on that. So with that, I don't know how much time it will take to check signals on those in terms of whether next week could be too soon or maybe
No,
should bounce.
I have time this week, I think, that we could meet if you do.
Okay.
So happy to
Okay.
do that.
Additional
Mayor.
comments or questions? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Trout, have the NIAs had a chance to look at these proposals and weigh in on them?
I have talked to CAC regarding these changes on multiple occasions. This is something that I have talked to them about access and where these departments would go, and I think that it's been clearly described. The issue that you have, though, is that not everyone attends every one of those meetings. So
Right.
it could be hit and miss as to whether there are individuals that have received this information that I presented. But it has been put out to them. But I can't really swear that everyone that normally would be from NIAs with their attendance to the CAC, but that's the best organization that I have to go with relation to for passing this information on.
Okay, and I'm not trying to belabor the adoption of something, but is there some of this that has to be adopted in a certain time frame in your mind?
Well, we're already going on about a year that these divisions have been moved to other departments based on my recommendations when the department director left. So, I mean, the issue is that I propose and I can make these changes. The issue that we have is that some of these changes are in the code as far as titles that exist, where divisions are assigned. And so eventually it needs to be approved by the governing body. I can rearrange things however I want based on my authority, but ultimately there has to be an approval granted by the governing body at some point for them to be made permanent. And so that's the issue. Ultimately, we need to approve this or deny it, and then I have to go back to the drawing board.
And I'll just tell you from reviewing it, I don't have an issue with, most of what you're trying to do, assuming it's not going to create more positions. I hope this is, as Mr. Ledbetter said, I really hope this is streamlining things.
I think it is.
But the one issue I do have, and those of us who have NIAs in our area, which is, I think, are most of us, one of the reoccurring things about NIAs is, frankly, they sometimes feel disrespected, like they just have decisions thrust upon them, like, here's what we're going to do. The city's going to come down from on high, and this is what we're going to do. So I would love, I don't know if it's possible to take out the NIA thing, the NIA portions of this now, because, again, I don't have an issue with the other parts. It's just that I would love to get, I'd love to see staff go around to the NIAs and present, here's what we're trying to do. Because, again, over the years, NIAs have kind of, as you know, and Mr. Trout, you've been to a lot of the meetings as well. I think sometimes there's a feeling maybe that their views aren't taken into account. So I would love to see us get their feedback before we adopt something that changes.
With relation to the NIA and the CAC changes that are included, that information came from the NIAs and the CAC making their decisions that they made, and then legal worked that language into this as they proposed. So there has been feedback that's been provided by them in order to make this happen the way it's proposed. I mean, these changes basically came from that, and us making a few technical changes that may have been required along the way. But so this has been, I guess, vetted by them would be the right word that I would use to a certain extent. Now, whether it needs to go back out to each individual NIA so they're aware of what's being proposed, but that's part of what the CAC's role has been, is to take these types of issues and concerns and figure them out for the NIAs as a whole. So we can pull it out if that's your request and go through that process. I'm fine with that. Ultimately, these are changes that they're looking to see, and I don't know that it will change much within regards to how they're performing. They're trying to manage what they do as an NIA or the CAC under this premise that we're looking at approving now. So it would be just, I guess, for lack of a better term, double tapping what we're proposing.
Yeah, and if I can, Mayor, thank you. And again, I don't know how many NIAs we have in the city. Does anyone know?
21?
21, okay. My only issue is, and I don't know what the old language is, but it's saying that the CAC, it might be only 5 people. So is it possible that some of these decisions were made just by 5 people?
There is, and it is a concern that was brought up related to a quorum for a CAC, because the old language stated that a quorum was those present when a CAC met. And so you could theoretically, if 3 people showed up for a CAC meeting, they could decide CAC decisions based on that. And it does vary. CAC meetings that I attend, I've been attending all of them for the last 6 months. They're making statements that, 6 people will be there 1 month, and 6, or I wouldn't say 6 different people, but maybe 3 other people will be there the next meeting. And so it varies from time to time with regards to who shows. There are some that are very, very consistent at showing, though, I will say.
Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, I see you, Councilwoman. We have Emerson is still asking, then we have Dobler, and then we have you.
I'll be quick.
I'm sorry that I was trying to make signs to you like I see you, but I know that it's far.
I guess the only thing, it'd bring me some comfort if I knew that, 12 of the 20 or something like that had supported this, and then I'm fine. I just hate to go out to my next NIA meeting and.
Honestly, this is not something that I think we're waiting to do anything else until this happens, until this gets approved. Okay. I don't think there's anything specific that's hinging on this getting approved in order to move forward. So if that's desired, that can be done.
Yeah, or if I just knew, if you can tell me that, 12 different people at the CAC approved this, then I'm good with that. Thank you.
Ms. Robertson?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to say that Monique Laudet worked directly with individuals on the CAC, and they did work through the bylaws, and they synced those up, as Councilmember Heller stated, with what's in here. And that was on the CAC piece. On the NIA piece, I think LaToya was the individual who spearheaded that one, and I don't know if she worked in conjunction with some of the NIA members on the CAC or directly with some of the NIAs themselves. But
and as we proceed, I think that it would be really nice for the council members, because it seems like Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, Councilman Emerson, and Councilwoman Hiller all are sharing the same concern, that if there was a communication with these NIAs, that at least some documentation that the council members could then say, okay, so here's the NIAs that were contacted, and here's the next ones that we're going to contact, will be really helpful for council members, as well as communicating with others.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Dobler, to be followed by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. We just hired a new public works director. Was he aware that a fair chunk of the department was going to be split out?
I had talked to him prior to him arriving. During the interview process, we hadn't finalized that related to that. So, no, they're not specific, but I think that the way I see it, his expertise will be beneficial in the sense that he will still be able to mentor the issues related to fleet and so forth with Hannah. That their offices are basically right next to each other, and so that is the intent, is that there still will be some effort on his part to assist on issues related to that.
Okay.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, to be followed by Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Chair. I am in really strong agreement with what Tony is proposing. I have heard a couple of different times from different CAC members that had deep concerns about the way that the quorum is so loose in the meetings. I have also heard that from folks that understand that neighborhood improvement association issues or stuff or topics are going to now come under the city manager, but they don't believe that the communication by the city manager on this has been as good as it could be, as good as it should be. again, I understand I have a responsibility as a district rep to talk with them about things, but they know because they're not supportive of it, I'm not going to be supportive of it. But just because there are questions and concerns, you may be able to change their minds. But I think what they're looking for is communication. And if that's what you're saying, City Manager, that you want to do with having this under your office now, then I think that's exactly what needs to start taking place. And so again, I agree with Tony's move that the NIA should be talked to, because they do a lot of times feel that they are being overlooked. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nager.
I must have flown my arm around. I'm good, thank you.
Oh, pardon me. I'm looking. Anybody else? Okay, City Manager, it seems like, oh,
I do have some other things that were commented on that I want to follow up on. You know, with regards to, it was mentioned on the elimination, we did eliminate one director. The Internal Operations Department would be utilizing current deputy director. It would be a small increase in salary as that responsibility comes. So it's not a big change and no new personnel as it relates to that. So that is intended to increase access to the other departments, which I think will streamline the ability for us to get responsiveness from the Internal Operations Department. As far as discussing, it was brought up by Mr. Ledbetter related to, this was on the agenda as a discussion item in December 8th of 2020. And so this item was brought as a discussion item, and at that point, with other items that were on the agenda, it was requested that it be pushed back a number of months related to completing the zoo issue that we had. And so it was brought. I do agree, though, with Councilwoman Hiller, the Internal Operations Department was not in that initial document.
Nor was CAC or neighborhoods.
Right. Those were, the CAC and neighborhood were items that were brought up based on changes that the CAC was requesting that we do. So that was not something I was originally proposing. So, and then, I will try and do a better job as far as defining the issues related to what we want to see with regards to code improvement. I think we're doing that with the committee that Councilwoman Hiller chairs related to public health and safety. And so I think we're going to get better measurables as it relates to that, rather than just saying we want improvement. We're going to help define what our aspirational goals, as we put it, are going to be related to that department. And I think the individuals that are in that department care a lot about their job and want to see our city better. And we need to make sure and equip them with the ability to do so. We'll verify with the NIAs their issues and make sure that we get that. I think that's very understandable to do. I discussed, that's why I've been attending all of these CAC meetings lately, because I think I had to miss one in the last 6 months. But trying to make sure that those NIAs are there and available to ask me questions, that I'm at the meeting and being able to do that. So I think those are all the other things I need to circle back on.
Councilman Duncan?
Just two things, because as you were talking, they popped into my head. And the first was, go back to something Councilmember Hiller said. I guess for those of us who are visual, some sort of organizational, actual chart would be nice.
Sure.
I mean, just, hey, this is where everyone falls under now, that, you know.
Before and after?
Keep it simple for me. That's kind of right. But I think that would also help the public and the NIAs and as we talk to them about, this is what it will really look like if you're talking about the pecking order. The second thing I'll point out, if this is nitpicking, so be it. And I sort of wondered about this, and as we listen, in our note, it says there's no budgetary impact. I will challenge that a little bit, and I'm not saying this is bad, but if we're having to give people a raise to do a new position, that is a budgetary impact. Now, I'm not saying that's not the correct decision, but I would just point out that in the future, if we could actually acknowledge that there is a budgetary impact to this move. And in some cases, it may be less. But
I'll better define that, because we eliminated one director's position, and this new director position would have an increase. So the overall impact is a reduction.
And I think it's important to show that too, not only so we understand that, but so that the public understands what the real impacts of these are on the budget as we
Yeah,
as to
I will
why
do
and
that.
how we make these decisions.
Understandable, I'll do that.
Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to throw out a challenge, and that as part of the NIA and CAC business, the DREAMS program included a lot about the CAC as well as how the NIAs wanted to be able to function and a lot of opportunities. And the way that was handled by the Neighborhood Initiatives Group was we met weekly from August and into November, asked for time in advance on the CAC agenda, and it was a 20-minute or so discussion item, not just an announcement, but it was introduced in November, discussion item in December, and they had great attendance, and it was adopted to forward it to this body, which has not happened yet, and to the NIAs themselves by a 15-0 vote of the CAC. And so it's a challenge out to city manager and staff in that they've wanted input, and that means not just showing up and announcing something and asking if people have questions. It does take time. And of course, issues are different, but they really do want change. Sometimes they're not always able to articulate what that is, but opening it up so they can grow. And so I'm hoping that as we progress on this, we'll get a foundation that everybody's really comfortable with in this language, but also that, you know, part of that relationship with them is to ask for time and really give them some time for input, not just tell them things and ask if they have questions. And so we're making progress. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Chair. I stopped attending Karen's meetings right at the beginning because I wasn't getting a lot of folks from District 2 involved in it. And I had just done a brief overview of the DREAMS, but if the DREAMS has the decimation of the SWORD program, I'm just going to say no matter how your votes went down in CAC, this is just as an FYI, the new NIA that was just voted in into North Topeka West, and then the other NIAs in two other NIAs in my area are not supportive of the decimation and the changeover of SORT. So if that's in that whole DREAM thing, which again, I admit I need to look over more, that's a real fear that this district has, is breaking that down so that other NAs or NIAs can get a bite of what was once that 1.7 million. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. City Manager?
Yeah, more than likely, this won't be on the agenda next week.
I don't think it will. That's what I was going to say. I think that it seems like
We'll work on it, we'll get it, we'll bring it back when we're ready.
All right. Thank you very much. At this point in time, we move on to public comments. Mr. Joseph Ledbetter. Podium is yours.
Thank you, governing body. I'll reserve any comments about that reorganization because it's going to be pulled next week, so I don't want to waste time. I want to talk about code enforcements. I have come down to this body for the last 6 years, talked about the need to sharpen it, fine-tune it. I have offered multiples of ideas. On the record, I've offered them to the staff of code enforcement. A few were taken, especially when I was president of Highcrest. We actually saw some improvement because they actually adopted some of the things I told them they needed to do instead of doing it business as usual, which was obviously not working. If you want the definition of insanity, just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Rearranging the chairs, the deck chairs on a Titanic when you got 2 hours to live is stupid. I am really concerned about code enforcement. I do not think it is getting the proper attention that it needs. I had a situation for 4.5 months in my neighborhood, my own neighborhood, a pretty nice little neighborhood. Most of it homeowners, a lot of very nice people, have been there for years. We had a house at 2415 Southwest Beverly Court. After 6 weeks of nothing being done, I finally contacted code enforcement and said, what are you doing about this house? Oh, well, we didn't know about it. So no patrolling. The manager's office didn't know about it. And what was going on, it's right next to a park. We had, I'm not really sure how to define it, but I'll use loose terms. It was a building, a material warehouse for the owner. It was a halfway house. We had junk trailers, and I'm talking about huge ones, parked on the street with no licenses, parked in the driveway. We had tent constructions when it rained of canvas that were incredibly tall, incredibly long. When they were finally evicted, the owner showed up with her boyfriend and moved a lot of the material out of the house that she claimed belonged to other people with a huge horse trailer. I think it was like a 10-horse trailer, and a huge truck. And I guess she moved that all back to her farm. Now, as a lawyer, I know how to cross-examine, so I called this lady. I wanted to know some more about what she had done. She admitted she'd brought those people in town because she didn't want them on her farm. I said, so we have no right to private, quiet enjoyment of our properties in this 100-family neighborhood? Well, I guess I didn't think about that. No, of course you didn't, because you live out in the county and you have no respect for the people in the city with your attitude. You don't care what we think. You don't care that we pay taxes for code enforcement and don't get it. And it took 4.5 months to solve this problem. That is beyond ridiculous. Folks, the system's broken. Moving it under another department is not going to fix it. Until you change leadership down here, nothing is going to get fixed. Now take that as high as you need to take it, but do something about it. Change something besides the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. I sent you photos of another lady that's suffering in East Topeka. She called me today because she knew me from my family years ago and said, will you help me? The city will not help me. And I said, what's going on, Miss Cole? She's 90, for crying out loud. She's a widow. Could the city pay attention to her problems? And I've sent you those photos. Now, I have her phone number. If the manager wants to call it, I'll email it to him. But this lady needs help. It is a godforsaken mess that she's dealing with. It looks like a haunted house next to her, full of rats. The person's died. I don't think they're still in there. And I hope not. Anyway, she has a horrible mess. She would like some relief. She pays taxes. Look at her house. It's nice.
Do you need additional time?
I don't. I promise I'd be nice. That's about as nice as I can get about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this point in time, we move on to the announcements, if the clerk would read.
The April 20th, 21 agenda includes 2 presentations. One is a property tax transparency, Senate Bill 13, and the second presentation is Administrative and Financial Services 4th Quarter Report. Routine items are on the consent agenda. The action items include a resolution, July 2021 governing body meeting cancellation, an ordinance regarding alarm system installers. Third item is a real estate lease renewal, National Guard Armory TPD training facility. Fourth action item is the resolution for 2022 through 2031 capital improvement plan and 2022 through 2024 capital improvement budget. And the next item for action is resolution authorizing revenue bonds utility system. And the non-action item is the discussion regarding the downtown Topeka master plan.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few things tonight. The first one I want to mention, which is something that I think is very needed within our community, our Topeka Fire Department paramedics in partnership with Shawnee County Health Department have been engaged with Topeka citizens who are unable to leave their homes to be vaccinated. And so our paramedics have been going into their home and providing that vaccination. To date, paramedics have vaccinated 35 of those homebound individuals and continue to look for others that may need that service. We want to make sure that we're providing that vaccine to those that are interested but can't get out to the vaccination sites. I wanted to bring up that if you're interested in a position, the city of Topeka currently has around 25 openings. So if you're looking for a job, please go to the topeka.org. And then on the upper right side, you'll see a tab to click on Careers, and you'll see a list of the positions that we have with the city. We're really looking for some good individuals, including code enforcement officers. So anyone that is interested in that type of a position, we have available opportunities. And so please encourage you to take a look at that if you're in need of a job. Remember, next week we are considering the CIP budget. If the governing body has any questions or concerns or amendments they'd like to propose, please get a hold of myself or finance staff in order for us to help with preparing those. So that's all I have.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things this evening. First is a reminder to everybody that it's the third Thursday of the month, which is kind of odd already, just the way the month goes, I guess. But you will find me every third Thursday over at Fairlawn Plaza, hanging out from 5 to 7 p.m. If you got anything you want to come talk to me about, I'm in the little information kiosk, which isn't too far from Kiku's in there, and so I will be there. The second thing is a reminder, this is the time of the year when we hear people, when there's a lot more orange cones everywhere than there are other times of the year, and so sometimes I get those emails or questions, what's going on over here, what's going on over there, and myself, I fall into that trap. There's this one path I take on a regular basis, and they've been doing a lot of great work over there, but even I forget and find myself saying, oh my gosh, how did I forget? Now I got to go all the way around. But what I always remind everybody and myself is, most of the times, orange cones are progress. We're fixing all those things you keep telling us we need to fix. So remember that first before you get frustrated and go through the detour, that we've got folks out there doing a lot of good work on our infrastructure. So that is all I have this evening, Mayor.
Councilman Lesser.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got three things. One, I don't know how many people are following Next Door, and I don't know where else this is, but the staff has begun doing street sweeping notices again. Right now, they're describing big districts. I don't know if they're yet putting signs on the streets the day before so people can get the cars off. City manager's nodding and says they're planning to, but that is a great plus to have that coming back, particularly in my area where we have a lot of trees and leaves, and the purpose is to clear all the way to the curb. People are going to be really happy about that. I don't know how many people saw this weekend. There was a front page article in Monday's paper, but I've been involved really heavily for the last a little more than a year with a new group called Topeka United, a movement. And we onboarded Topeka's first Mosaic Partner Pairs program this weekend on Saturday morning, and did kind of a meet and greet photo op at the plaza at noontime. It was a lot of fun. We have 98 people involved in that. The fundamental there is that is working toward improving equity, inclusion, opportunity, and welcome in our community for everyone. And the fundamental there is that and it's true really in almost any circumstance, but that the only way to achieve lasting social change is one relationship at a time. And so those pairs are individuals who are different on the outside, but have similarities on the inside. And so they've already had their first meetings and are often going. It is a 9-month engagement, and we're hoping to have a fairly steady opportunities for the public to get a peek at how those relationships are going and the ahas and so on as that goes along. And if you want to see pictures besides the ones that were in the paper, you can check on Facebook. And I have to tell you this because I'm still progressively amazed. It went up on, I think, Sunday on the Topeka United Facebook page. It's been shared and viewed, and there are over 5,800 views right now of that post. This is really something that people care a lot about. And with that, maybe it's time to get this body to sign on to the social compact that Topeka United has, and I'll be getting with the mayor and with the city manager here shortly to see about bringing that back to you all. And third, I just wanted to give a shout out to finance staff and to the utility staff. We all got CIP supplement number 6 this week, which was an incredibly detailed list of the utilities projects. And just so you all know, one of the reasons I asked for it is I really do think we all need the coming year's projects upfront as we go through the CIP. But I had asked for it otherwise from working with the neighborhood groups that I was talking about, in that one of the things we hear a lot, at least some of us do, is that as a claim that, oh, they're never doing things in my part of town. And it's something that I'm really proud of in this city, that we really have geographic equity in our water and sewer and stormwater, as well as street and other public works projects. And that particular supplement really shows that. Sometimes it's not very glamorous if it's a pump station or something like that, but the staff is really good about it, and there was a lot of detail that I think is really valuable for all of us to use. And just to close out, I love the maps that they do with that, because that makes it easier for us all to see. So thank you. That's it.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alca.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things. One, I wanted to say congratulations to the new slate of officers at the North Topeka West NIA. Elections happened last night. Also want to give a huge shout out of thanks to Teresa Miller. For years, she has been stalwart in moving forward to do, the best she could as NIA president in that particular area of town, has worked to get a lot of things done. I'm sure we'll still see her attending meetings, but just wanted to let her know how much she's appreciated. Also, I appreciated the information that was sent out on the March 2021 COVID assistance information. It was information on small business grants programs and on homeless emergency solutions grants. It looks to me that there's still quite a bit of money to go out. But the question that I had, and I don't know if this would be a question for you, City Manager, is that when it comes to COVID, we know that health-wise, Black and Brown communities have been inordinately impacted with the amount of cases in community, and that is for a number of reasons. But as we look to this part of how COVID is impacting not only white communities, but Black and Brown communities, I'm wondering if there is any way to do any tracking on those numbers of loans that are being given out, or on the monies, the homeless emergency monies given out. And some people might want to say, well, why are we including race in this, whatever? The important reason for including race in this is that our housing study that we spent how many tens of thousands of dollars for has told us that Black families, that Black folks are have the lowest or the highest level of unemployment. Next is the Latino population, and that Black communities also do the highest amount of rental housing, and therefore may be more vulnerable to eviction. So by keeping numbers, we are doing the due diligence that our entire community needs when it comes to giving out this money and tracking. So I'm wondering if there's any tools in place at this point that maybe we couldn't see on the form that was provided to us.
I'll give a quick answer. On the individual assistance, I'm not sure. I think that information is being tracked, but I'll have to verify. I don't have it in front of me. Pulling up the document I sent you, when it comes to the assistance to small businesses, 65% are minority or women-owned businesses that we've supported. So we do have that number, and that was something that we started tracking from the very beginning. I'll have to follow up on the individual assistance to be able to provide that information.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I did see that that was probably the one that have the most glaring uncertainty about it. And then one more thing, I'm going to go back to code enforcement. And I know that Mr. Ledbetter brought, forth that there was an issue that he has waited 4.5 months to be resolved. Well, the bottom line, in parts of District 2, and I understand that COVID put a damper on a lot of things. However, there are still cases that we have out there, zoning and code issues that are going past a year. I have so many that are out there that have gone past 6 months, 8 months. And the level of frustration that I am increasingly having, along with those people I serve, we don't have enough time in the day to talk about, at least not at this meeting. So we have to come up with something that's going to help us do better and be more proactive and find creative ways that if people are sent to court and if they can't afford to pay a fine, that we can look at creative ways for them to do something in community, especially for repeat offenders, to understand that they are part of a neighborhood, that they are part of a community. And I'm telling you, with some of what we see in our area, honestly, no offense to these folks, but go live in the country. I mean, because you are living next door to families, across the street from families and neighbors, and we have that social responsibility to each other. But there is a lot of issues that we need to deal with code. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to start out by thanking the firefighters at Station Number 7 for being inconvenienced for a day or two. I personally want to thank them because I know sometimes we get inconvenienced and we scream and holler, and they didn't. They didn't want to leave because they know that station answers the most calls in the city. And they put the citizens first when they stayed there and slept in the garage. They made it work. And so I just want to tell them thank you for putting the citizens first, because that's what it's all about. Second, all of us have NIAs. Well, not all of us, but to those of us that have NIAs, we become friends with the members on a personal note. And I just want to give my condolences to Tony and Teresa Gavin. They were members of the East Topeka North NIA. Tony passed away April the 1st, and Teresa passed away October the 20th of last year. They were very, very faithful members to the NIA, and they were faithful members in the community. They would come over to East Topeka South and do whatever they could in East Topeka, and they will truly be missed. I was just very saddened to see that they have both passed away, but if you knew them the way that I knew them, they were very close. It's their love. It's like when one leaves, the other one follows shortly after. So Tony and Teresa, they picked up Eastboro parking lot. They picked up the park. They picked up a lot of the creek. They just did a lot of things for East Topeka, and they will be sadly missed. And they were also very involved at the fiesta. You always seen their presence, and you always seen them working hard with a smile. And last but not least, I want to say happy 91st birthday to Matilda, also known as Tilly Alexander. And she's 91 today. And I called her this morning to wish her a happy birthday. And she always says, I always ask her, how's she doing? And she said, every day that I wake up, I'm still in the game. So she's still in the game at 91. So I just want to wish her a happy birthday. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, ever since I've had this seat, I had a gentleman in my district, and Councilman Dobler knows him, Jim Martin, who has served as my representative on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And Jim has the wisdom and the energy of someone, well, I guess I shouldn't guess his age here on TV, but he's probably in his 60s. And he has more energy and a lot more intelligence and drive than I do. As a matter of fact, when my seat became open, before I applied, I tried to get him to apply. He was too smart to do so. Then when it came time to run for the seat, I tried to get him to run instead of me, and again, he was too smart to do so. So I got word today that Mr. Martin he's built a new house out in the county, so he will now be Commissioner May's representative on the Parks and Rec Board. So I wanted to thank Jim for his service. Again, if we had 20 or 30 Jim Martins around Topeka, we wouldn't have any problems, I'm convinced. So just a great, great man. So thanks, Jim, for your service. And I know you're going to be around, and I really appreciate everything you and Shirley do for Topeka and Shawnee County now. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Nager.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councilman Dobler, take us home.
Do that if I can get my mic on. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. It is spring, the grass is green, flowers are blooming. Sometimes it's hard to see the flowers when you're hitting potholes or dodging potholes. It's a time of year where you start noticing the things that maybe you've ignored all winter. I've had several complaints about trash. There's a lot of trash out there, and I know our inmate crews that did such really a good job for a number of years have not been out. Hopefully we'll be able to get those crews back out. I think there's just tons of plastic bags and all kinds of stuff blowing around. Frankly, I'm getting tired of hearing from Joe Ledbetter about code enforcement issues. And I guess I don't know what happens. He sends pictures that look horrible. Somebody responds to him about, we'll pass this on. And then a few weeks later, we get the same pictures. Kind of goes along with the trash. It makes this community look not as pristine as it could. Sometimes I try to put myself in the eyes of somebody coming into the community, if they're looking for a job or a place to live or whatever. Right now, it doesn't look that great. And I know we've got a infrastructure meeting in a couple of weeks. We'll be talking about the 2021 street repair projects. I'll be interested to see there's a couple of streets in my neighborhood that I get questions about because they did a great job for about half the street and then they stopped. So you can enjoy the flowers for about a half a block and then you hit the potholes. So kind of wondering, I guess the response I got last year was they ran out of money, so they had to quit there. Hopefully those will be taken care of this year. And I guess I'll quit there. Thank you.
All right. There are no executive sessions this evening. Being that there is no other items for the body to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.
Objection.